this is my review of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Okay, so despite what the title actually claims, this episode is actually a kind of a 2.5 episode. It's kind of an episode and a half. So this episode finishes up the latter half of I Am an Alien, while also starting up the next episode, Highway Star. So, and it's called Highway Star Part 1 because it's technically the first part of Highway Star, but it's also a combination of, it's kind of a combination of the Highway Star arc and the I Am an Alien arc, and it meshes the two together as in continuity wise. So it starts off with Josuke continuing to play the game against Rohan. They're continuing to play the game of Cee-lo. And by this point, Rohan is starting to become suspicious. Rohan begins to look at the dice and begins to trying to inspect them. He's kind of a little bit confused because Josuke just rolled another set of sixes, which confuses Rohan, but Rohan is surprisingly calm, even though he's pretty sure by this point that Josuke is cheating, and even kind of laughs off the whole situation. Then he stabs himself in the finger with a pen. So yeah, he specifically stabs himself with a pinky because, as he points out, he knows that Josuke is cheating, and he won't rest until he figures out when he's cheating, and then declares that they're going to do a different type of wager. If Rohan loses the game and is unable to figure out how Josuke is cheating, then Josuke will be able to repair his finger. But if not, then Rohan is going to take Josuke's finger, and well, basically Josuke knows he can't lose his finger. And also to make sure that everything goes off without a hitch, and to actually guarantee that he knows that Josuke is cheating, he actually calls up Tamami, who we've established has been in the hospital for a while. Which is why we haven't seen him in a long time. He's been in the hospital since Surface. So he's been gone quite a while. He's been gone since the Surface arc. But in any case, he shows up and declares that he's going to work as a impartial judge to determine whether or not Josuke is actually cheating. And also to guarantee to make sure the fact that Josuke isn't cheating, and to see if there's anything suspicious about the dice. Rohan actually grabs a magnifying glass to get a closer look at them, but he can't really determine anything with the magnifying glass and quickly discards it. At which point Tamami reveals that in addition to being able to literally weigh people down with their guilt, apparently the lock works as a lie detector. It's able to use its ability, and it can be summoned regularly as a regular stand. And in its handheld form, it's able to determine whether or not somebody is lying. And if the lock moves, then it means the person is being truthful and honest. And if not, then that means the person is lying. So yeah, basically it also works as a rudimentary lie detector, which makes sense. It's designed to latch onto a person's guilt and become a physical weight on their shoulders. So it makes sense that it would also have the ability to detect whether or not someone feels guilty. So yeah, it definitely makes sense that it could be used as a rudimentary lie detector. But in any case, Rohan and Josuke continue to play the game. Rohan rolls a normal roll, quote unquote, accidentally. And then nobody is able to actually determine whether or not Josuke is actually cheating. So Josuke takes another dice roll, and then throws it and gets 3 sixes. And because the lock doesn't move, Tamami is able to use his stand to determine that Josuke is indeed cheating, but Rohan is still unable to actually deduce how. So it is evident by the fact that he is cheating at the game, but how is still eluding Rohan. But in case Rohan decides to throw another roll, and he again gets another normal roll. At which point Josuke picks it up, but notices that Mikitaka is actually getting dizzy. All that being thrown around is actually causing Mikitaka to get dizzy, and he actually throws up. Which comes out of one of the little holes on the side of the die, but it basically what happens is he's getting dizzy, and Josuke is quickly realizing that he's on borrowed time, because should Rohan discover that the dice is throwing up, it's going to be over, and Rohan is going to figure out how he's cheating. And then, to make matters worse, there's suddenly a bunch of fire trucks going by, which are with their sirens blazing, which Josuke knows is definitely going to give him away, because Mikitaka is allergic to sirens. We've established this. That was a big thing that happened last episode, and sure enough, the dice that Mikitaka has transformed into are starting to develop a rash, and Josuke quickly realizes that he's going to transform back soon enough if he don't hurry up and finish the game. So he's very hesitant to roll the die, but he eventually does. And the rash hasn't quite spread to the side that Rohan is looking at, so Josuke is safe for now. And Rohan decides to get closer to inspect the dice again, since Josuke just rolled another 6. So he gets closer and starts to investigate, only for the fire trucks to pull up outside of Rohan's house. As it turns out, when Rohan discarded the magnifying glass, he accidentally set his house on fire. Which buys Josuke the opening he needs to actually make his escape, and heals Rohan's pinky before he leaves. And now, because Rohan's house is on fire, he basically now, in addition to owing a debt to Josuke, also has to pay off his house and all the damages that were caused by his fire. But in any case, because of this whole situation, Josuke now owes Rohan a bit more of a debt, and well, basically, long story short, Rohan and Josuke, their relationship has soured quite a bit because of this. Because Josuke decided to cheat, in addition to Rohan accidentally setting his own house on fire because Josuke cheated, they're not going to be friends anytime soon. But in any case, the next day, Josuke runs into Mikitaka on the streets, and Mikitaka and Josuke kind of have a bit of a talk before Mikitaka's mother shows up and tells him to stop telling people he's an alien, and then apologizes to Josuke formally, because that was apparently a big problem at Mikitaka's old school. But Mikitaka merely explains that he hypnotized his mother into believing he's actually her son. So, which confuses Josuke and Yoshihiro Kira, who is nearby and is visibly confused and concerned about what exactly transpired regarding Mikitaka and his Earth, Wind, and Fire, because it's evident that Mikitaka, it's unclear whether or not he is or is not an alien, and nobody's entirely sure which is which. And Hirohiko Araki hasn't really ever explained whether or not he's actually an alien or not, so it's entirely up in the air. So it's understandable that there would be some visual confusion at the end of this arc, because it's clear that something is off with Mikitaka, but nobody's entirely sure what it is. But regardless of whether or not he's an alien or not, Yoshihiro Kira declares that Mikitaka did serve his role in putting a rift between Josuke and Rohan, but declares that that's not going to be enough, and declares that the next stand user he sends, Highway Star, will actually be able to defeat the Joestar group before long. At which point it then transitions into the next arc of this, which is literally, called Highway Star, which is what the episode is named after. So this arc actually starts off with Hayato. As it turns out, Hayato has noticed that his mother seems a bit happier than she normally is. And then he goes to his room, and as it turns out, the camera that was hidden in the ceiling, apparently it's his. So, yeah, apparently he uses surveillance cameras and a whole bunch of other shit to spy on his parents. So, yeah, Hayato's weird, apparently. But as it turns out, Hayato is able to actually benefit the Joestar group in some way, because as it turns out, because of his hidden camera, he was actually able to not so much get a confession out of Yoshikage Kira and the fact that he's lying about what his real identity is, but he did hear all of the things that his father actually said in private and didn't think anybody would hear. So, yeah, ironically, because Yoshikage Kira didn't realize that there was a camera watching him, he said some things that could incriminate himself, and Hayato happened to record it because he is the one on the receiving end of that camera. So, yeah, I get the feeling he's eventually going to leak what was said to the Joestar group so that they can actually use that as information, but who knows? But in case it then picks up to kind of sort of where the last arc left off with Josuke getting on a bus to go somewhere, discovering that Rohan is there and is understandably very uncomfortable about the whole situation. Since Rohan and Josuke kind of aren't on speaking terms at the moment, but Rohan merely greets Josuke, pointing out that he needs to greet him, pointing out that he's his senior and that he has to respect traditional Japanese social customs and address people he knows that are superior to him. So Josuke eventually relents, sits down, and apologizes for what happened yesterday with his house. Although Rohan admits that it's no big deal and that he can pay it off easily because he's a manga author, but he does lament in the back of his mind that he will eventually get Josuke back for all of the problems he's caused for him. So yeah, although Rohan is outwardly formal and not accusatory at all, inside he resents Josuke with a burning passion. So, but as he's trying to figure out a way to actually get Josuke back, he actually sees a room in the middle of the tunnel that they're traveling through in the bus, and notices something weird. He notices a door and a window in the middle of the room, and is notably visually disturbed because he believes it to be a stand. And case in point, he notices something else peculiar in the room. Namely, he notices someone resembling Yoshikage Kira murdering a young woman and cutting off her hand. And he believing that that's a good enough reason to just kind of go out and investigate, tells Josuke what he saw, but Josuke just kind of doesn't believe him and very publicly points out that he believes that Rohan is quite literally trying to just get him back and trying to make him look like a fool. With Rohan realizing that only he can see the room and only he can actually confirm whether or not it exists. At which point, after having a bit of an argument with Josuke, namely that Josuke calls him a liar because he doesn't believe that Rohan actually saw anything. And Rohan pointing out the hypocrisy in that statement, pointing out that Josuke often does the exact opposite of what he says he's going to do, and often lies about and more recently he lied about what he did during the Cee-lo game. So he points out that his concerns aren't really warranted, and then they go their separate ways. At which point Rohan comes back with his bike and proceeds to investigate the subway tunnel to figure out whether or not the room he saw was actually real. And so, sure enough, he goes into the tunnel to look for evidence of the room he found. But eventually he stops, realizing he can't see anything, and that he's about halfway into the tunnel and he still hasn't found it. So he begins to proceed to believe that it really was just his imagination. And begins knocking on the concrete in the spot where he thought the door would be, and doesn't find anything at first. Only for the door to the room that he found to open up, and he finds it to be completely empty and deserted. At which point he realizes that likely what he saw was just an illusion. But as he's trying to contemplate whether or not he should leave the room, he suddenly hears something coming from the cabinet nearby. And decides to leave because he realizes something is chasing him. At which point he gets back on his bike and proceeds to chase after it. And sure enough, he does indeed see something after he gets on his bike. As it turns out, Highway Star is actually a stand that lives inside the room, and we see its full appearance later. I'll show a picture of that when that happens. But for right now, it just kind of manifests itself as a series of feet and proceeds to chase after Rohan, with Rohan figuring out pretty quickly that as long as he stays over its max speed of 60 miles per hour, he'll be fine. But as he's trying to outrun the stand, he sees the truck, swerves to avoid it, and slows down just enough for the stand to catch up to him. At which point the stand proceeds to suck out his nutrients like a vampire, specifically a JoJo's vampire who kind of used their fingers to suck the nutrients out of people, as opposed to the whole blood sucking thing. We saw that in part 1. It's a thing that's been established. So yeah, that's how JoJo's vampires work. If you guys don't remember, but But in any case, the stand proceeds to suck out his nutrients, and Rohan falls off his bike, and the bike careens out of the tunnel in the direction that he came. At which point Rohan tries to use Heaven's Door to stop it, but quickly realizes that he's no match for the stand. At which point Highway Star fully manifests itself, and it kind of looks like an Egyptian pharaoh of some sort. But Highway Star declares that Rohan isn't going to be able to defeat it, and that he should just resign to giving him nutrients. But Rohan, ever reluctant to actually give in to the threat of Highway Star, uses Heaven's Door to try and figure out its weakness, only to discover that once it's manifested itself, it can't actually be defeated. So Rohan quickly realizes that he's now up shit creek without a paddle, and is quickly realizing that he's likely going to die to Highway Star. But at the last minute, Josuke showed up. As it turns out, Rohan was completely right about Josuke saying the exact opposite of things he planned to do. And case in point, even though he declared that he wasn't going to actually follow Rohan into the tunnel to help him look, he decides to do so anyway, and proceeds to go into the tunnel and look for Rohan and call out his name. At which point Highway Star realizes it has a bargaining chip and can actually gain another person to suck nutrients out of, and proceeds to take Rohan back to the room where it first manifested. At which point Josuke proceeds further into the tunnel, notices that Rohan's bike is just kind of lying on its side Rohan is nowhere to be seen, and quickly realizes that something is wrong and runs into the tunnel. At which point he sees the room that Highway Star manifests itself in, and sees Rohan sitting in the middle of it. At which point Highway Star tries to strike a deal with Rohan. If Rohan calls Josuke into the room, Highway Star will let him go and take Josuke instead. And Highway Star is quick to point out how little Josuke and Rohan like each other, and tries to coerce Rohan into actually doing what he wants. And after asking if Highway Star will actually let him go, and confirming that he will, he refuses, pointing out that while Josuke does get on his nerves, he does have a set of morals, and isn't going to just give up somebody else as a victim for the sake of his own life. And then yells at Josuke to get as far away from the tunnel as possible, pointing out that once he comes into the room, Highway Star is going to chase after him and try to kill him. Unfortunately for Rohan, this has the exact opposite effect. And Josuke comes in the room, which means that now Highway Star has its scent and will now be able to chase after Josuke and never let him go. So, at which point Rohan realizes that Josuke is in trouble, and then uses Heaven's Door to eject Josuke out of the tunnel at 70 miles per hour. But as Josuke is being ejected out of the tunnel, he tells Josuke its weakness, that if he can stay above 60 miles per hour, and find a stand user, Josuke will be able to defeat Highway Star. And Josuke, after landing next to Rohan's bike, realizes that he will have to be the only one to actually save Rohan, and then gets on Rohan's bike and proceeds to go look around Morio for Highway Star's stand user. So yeah, so this episode does button up the whole arc with I Am an Alien and Mikitaka. This episode just kind of ends with nobody really understanding whether or not Mikitaka is actually an alien or not, and it also opens up a new threat, Highway Star. And Highway Star is basically it's a stand version of a vampire. That's how it works. It relentlessly chases any victims that wander into its room where it manifests itself. If they're unable to move faster than 60 miles per hour, then it'll suck out their nutrients like a JoJo's vampire, and it's very, very scary. It can easily chase after somebody and catch them if they don't have a vehicle nearby, because no human can run over 60 miles per hour. So it's always going to be able to catch its victims if they unwittingly wander into its room. So yeah, overall this episode was interesting because it just introduces a new threat, but also it just kind of introduces kind of like a horror-ish creature that just will chase after its prey relentlessly until it catches them. So Josuke is going to have to be very careful because, as we've established, Josuke can't heal himself, And Josuke and Highway Star is very fast. So if Josuke isn't fast enough to outspeed it, then he's going to be in big trouble. But I get the feeling Josuke is going to continue to stay out of 60 miles per hour, and going to try and do his best to actually keep ahead of the stands. But who knows? I mean, there's a very good possibility the stand could catch him, and he'll just be able to make it to the stand user in time and defeat him. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't know. It could be interesting. It could be an interesting fight. But in any case, that's going to do it for my review of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks, and I always saying thanks. So be sure to check those out in the description below as well. But regardless of whether or not you do any or all of those things, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!